Hello, my name is Alexander Martinez, and along with my colleagues, Carlos Gonzalez and Stephanie Muniz, we will be discussing our capstone project, more specifically Prephase A of our project titled Ventricular Assist Device with Telemonitoring Capabilities. During the presentation, we will discuss the following key and relevant information of our project: users and stakeholders, background information, project objectives, concept of operations, project significance, preliminary system level requirements and constraints, and finally, our project planning. Our whole capstone project is focused on designing and manufacturing a left ventricular assist device, which is an important and useful medical device for patients with advanced heart failure. We, the students developing this project, will be our own stakeholders. So heart failure, or weak heart, as is often referred to, it is known as the inability of heart to pump enough oxygen-rich blood to meet the body's demand. This disease is often particularized by having a low ejection fraction, which is the percentage of blood leaving your heart each time it contracts. While a normal ejection fraction may be between 50 to 70%, patients who suffer heart failure possess an ejection fraction of less than 40%. Overall, heart failure is a major public health problem, as approximately 550,000 new cases of heart failure are diagnosed, and 287,000 patients die each year due to heart failure in the US. Our project aims to develop a ventricular assist device with telemonitoring capabilities. But what exactly is our device? The prototype we want to develop is an electromechanical circulatory support device that can help pump blood from the left ventricle to the rest of your body, just as a normal LVAD would, but with an extra feature of having the ability of monitoring its own pump parameters via a mobile application. The overall goal of this capstone is to support patients' heart function by maintaining their ejection fraction above 55% and provide continual and significant monitoring during the complex aftercare of their disease. Now we will dive into some concept operations of how heart failure is currently addressed. In this first one, we can see the two most common treatments used in heart failure, which are heart transplants and LVADs. As we can appreciate in the concept operations, heart failure possesses many symptoms, but is mainly characterized by the reduced volume of oxygen-rich blood pumped to the body. In this collapse, you can see the LVAD's components such as the heart pump system controller and the batteries. We can also see how LVADs increase blood flow from the left ventricle towards the body through the heart pump.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Muniz. I'm going to talk about the market study of our project of LVAD device. Nowadays, heart failure affects more than 11 million people around the United States and Europe, with an incidence of approximately 1 million cases per year. What's the problem with this? The high demand for heart transplant cannot meet, and owing to the lack of donor organs. With this problem is developed the left ventricular assist device as an option for patients suffering from end-stage heart failure. The average cost of this device accounts to $85,000 to $90,000 per year, making it unaffordable for patients to undergo implantations. Why this device? This device is taken in consideration for people who are waiting for a heart transplantation that could take years in a waiting list. Next slide. Okay. The global ventricular assist device market size was valued at approximately in $1.7 billion in the last year, 2019. In this table shows that in North America is where most it sells this device. As we can see, market is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of around 11.7% from this year 2020 to 2027. Next slide. In this table shows that the 48% of the total cost comes from the device. With our new design, its purpose is to how this percent getting more accessible to the client or patient that is going to wear this device. Now, the cost analysis. The first table shows us the materials and the software we're going to use. It's the microchip, DC motor, battery, wiring filament, coating, and among others. The software workforce that is going to be by me, Alexander, and Carlos, and equipment. The total cost of the device could be of $500. Now, we're making a little research of the devices that it's actually in the market. The models are DuraHard, Harmony 2, Harmony 3, Hardware, and Centromag. Centromag is the most cheap of them. It's about $10,000, but it's for short-term duration. The purpose of our device is to be shipped and for long-term duration. Now, the financial project plan about our device, the unit cost, it could be of $500 as mentioned before. And the first selling cost of our device in the first time period could be of $5,000 with approximately selling of units of $1,000, getting a total income of $5 million. Around the 2025, we expect to maintain the price of $500 of the unit cost, getting a little bit high of approximately $5,000 more, getting the device at $10,000, selling it. And we expect to sold 5,000 units around this year, getting a total income of $50 million.
As we already identified, due to this cost analysis and comparison market study, already internal clients, external clients, we've defined these problems and objectives for these customer expectations. Therefore, we're not ready to establish certain measures of effectiveness and their respective measures of performance as these technical requirements that will directly translate to these specific MOEs or measures of effectiveness that the user and the clients will evaluate these expectations. The following MOEs identified were the cost, the comfortability, the durability, the portability, its weight, its usability, extractability and implantability, as well as its replaceability by default, noise reduction, and most importantly as well, the pyrogenicity and its hemocompatibility. To explain a little bit more thoroughly, these first MOEs are basically necessities for the user, as it must be a cheap device, as well as it must be comfortable for the user while wearing the device. As well, it must be durable and withstand a 1-year functionality, and it must be portable, as well as lightweight. Next off, on the other hand, these next MOEs are more requirements implemented on the product per se, whereas it shall be simple to use for telemonitoring and regulation for real time due to its usability, as well as it shall be easily extractable or replaceable for the subject in order for that product to be deeply extractable or replaceable, as well as the implantability for the subject. It provide a less invasiveness in the subject as well. Finally, we have the noise reduction. This is more of a project goal and where it should be quiet while in usage for that comfortability and durability for the user as well. However, it is important to mention these last two measures of effectiveness because these are very much required for many of the regulation agencies. For example, pyrogenicity is the ability to withstand work even through pyrogenic fever. In other words, a pyrogen is induced into the body as an external third-party substance and therefore induced a fever. And it is the measure of the evaluation of that feasibleness of the product while working on the condition. Next off, on the other hand, we do have hemocompatibility, in which it must have an easy interaction between the blood and the respective device being used. Now that we have established these specific measures of effectiveness, we can now identify their respective measures of performance into distinct requirements such as functional requirements like the producibility or the operability of the user or the clients, or even the biocompatibility of the product on the user. For example, this is a class 3 device for the FDA in the United States of America. This is deeply regulated by the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 21, for this Food and Drug Agency. Specifically, the Part 820.30, which is specifically the Section 30, designed for device design. These are quality parameters used for a pre-market approval in order to approve this device in commercial use. There are many other agencies that are used for these specific MOPs, such as the American Society for Testing Materials, the American National Standards Institute, the Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation, or also called AMI, and even the International Standardization Organization. For example, these last mentioned are used for MOPs, very necessary for the useful life expectancy for the system, which will be a 1-year shelf life, as well as different dimensionalities for the device design, such as rotor length, which will be no more than 100 millimeters, as well as with a 30 millimeter circumference, or even volume flow, which is optimal at 10 liters per minute. On the other hand, the ISO, which I already mentioned as the International Organization for Standardization, also has another parameter, which is also numbered as the 10993-1, also named as the Biological Evaluation for Medical Devices, specifically the Part 1, which is called Evaluation and Testing. These will also be evaluated for volume flow, pump velocity, which will not be more than 10,000 revolutions per minute, as well as the water resistance, which will be evaluated in pressure points, such as atmosphere levels or the meters below water level, as well as other factors, such as the biopleasantness on the body, which is the allergic reaction or the intracutaneous reactivity or the irritation produced by the implantability of that device. And finally, we do have electrical and electromechanical standards, which are operated by the International Electrotechnical Commission, or the IEC. And these are specifically regulated for telemonitoring devices, for software regulations, and real-time regulations, such as the monitoring of blood flow, rotor speed, battery life, and even the operability of the person post the implementation of that device. Finally, now that we've established these measures for the functionality of this device, we can now deploy this house of quality or this quality function deployment. This will be evaluated for a specific relationship in which we will identify and also establish and describe distinct necessities between these technical requirements and the expectations of the client. For example, we first rank these measures of effectiveness of the client here on the right side of these MOEs by descending order. The most important is the cost, and the less important is the noise, because it's more of a goal. This is the most necessary for the project, and is the most evaluated by the customer and the clients as well. That's why this MOP directly translated to the technical requirement of being less than $1,000 of the cost will be highly regulated and highly related to the cost MOE. On the other hand, this same measure of performance will be slightly less regulated and related to other factors of these measures of effectiveness, such as durability, portability, weight, usability, the replaceability and extractability, and even the implantability of that product. On the other hand, we have other important MOPs in which will be as well be related to these specific necessities and expectations of the clients. For example, we can also take the next one, which will be the operability of the user during this product, during this post-implementation of the product, in which will have a very deep and thorough relationship with the usability as a measure of effectiveness. As well, it will have a very low relationship with the cost, the comfortability for the user, and the noise implementation. Therefore, we see a heavily deep reliance on important factors that were considered as primordial MOPs with a high functionality number right here on the right side, and a little bit less importance on the more goal-oriented subjects for this QFB.
To conclude this presentation, we have our preliminary project planning where we have outlined the specific activities regarding phase A and who is responsible for that specific activity. So for technological assessment, the group as a whole will be responsible. I'll be responsible for mission architecture, Stephanie for trade studies, and Carlos for budget. As for the current subsystems that we envision our project having, Stephanie will be responsible for heart pump design and manufacturing. I will be responsible for parameter monitoring and microcontroller programming, and Carlos will be responsible for data transmission and mobile app development. Each of the subsystems will establish their requirements, risk assessments, and their own project plan timeline. We expect to present phase A on September 18th. And thank you for your time.